He has come out firing. He is Tom Brady's agent and attorney. The discipline is ridiculous. This is a long statement, bear with me, and it has no legitimate basis. In my opinion, this outcome was predetermined. There was no fairness to the Wells investigation whatsoever. There is no evidence that Tom directed footballs to be set at pressures below the allowable limits. In fact, the evidence shows Tom clearly emphasized, Yee says, that footballs be set at pressures within the rules. Tom also cooperated with the investigation and answered every question presented to him. The Wells report presents significant evidence, however, that the NFL lacks standards or protocols with respect to its handling of footballs prior to games. This is not the fault of Tom Brady, he says, or the Patriots. The report also presents significant evidence the NFL participated with the Colts in some type of pre-AFC championship game planning regarding the footballs. This fact may raise serious questions about the integrity of the games we have viewed on Sundays. Not pulling any punches. We will appeal, and if the hearing officer is completely independent and neutral, I'm very confident the Wells report will be exposed as an incredibly frail exercise in fact-finding and logic. The NFL has a well-documented history of making poor disciplinary decisions that often are overturned when truly independent and neutral judges or arbitrators preside. And a former federal judge has found the commissioner has abused his discretion in the past, so this outcome does not surprise me. Don Yee finishes by saying, sadly, today's decision diminishes the NFL as it tells its fans, players, and coaches that the games on the field don't count as much as the games played on Park Avenue. Our Mike Silver has been fairly adamant this morning that he doesn't like Yee's tone and doesn't know that this is the best way to go about things. Silver, Jeff Darlington, Judy Batista, Albert Breer, all of you guys. Silver, start with you. Tell me why you think this isn't the right way to handle it.
Well, I know I feel diminished based on Don Yee's contention that the games on Park Avenue matter more than the games on the field. Look, we all have agents. We understand what it's like to have someone as your advocate and perhaps publicly. Talk to me, Jeff, about your views on Don Yee's presentation and how it is making Tom Brady look in public.
Well, Mike, I would first point to the fact that the comments from the agent are a matter of the court of public opinion. You just heard everything that Ian said about potential arbitration. That is where this will ultimately be settled based on the facts and the argument that Yee will make. But in terms of the court of public opinion, sometimes going on these type of rants might draw plenty of attention to the situation, but doesn't ultimately help it. We can go back to 2005 with Terrell Owens when Drew Rosenhaus went with the Next Question news conference. That obviously drew an enormous amount of attention to the situation, but ultimately Owens' suspension and his deactivation from each game thereafter was upheld. So he lost in arbitration. So again, while he's trying to gain support in the court of public opinion in this matter, ultimately what will matter is what happens behind the scenes. So I really don't put that much credence into anything that Yee is saying at this point.
And Albert, if you're the NFL...
Jeff, I think it's...
Oh, go ahead, Albert. I'm sorry.
No, Jeff, I think it's important that we separate where we've been and where we're going on this. Now, as far as where we've been, I don't think there's any question that Don Yee's hurt Brady to some degree. The NFL privately fumed about the way the Patriots ran what they believe was a whisper campaign, fingering several league executives and saying that some of this investigation wasn't done above board. On top of that, anything that comes out like this isn't going to help someone when a Troy Vincent or a Roger Gale is sitting down and deciding on punishment. That said, as far as where we're going forward from here, Tom Brady is Don Yee's most high-profile client. You know who's number two? Is Sean Payton, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Payton successfully fought the appeal. Now, he was suspended for a year, but he did successfully fight an appeal. Wound up having his suspension vacated in the aftermath. And so Yee's presence in all of this is important. He went through it one time before with Peyton. I'd assume that might be where we're going again with Tom Brady, that they'd be willing to take this based on that and based on the tenor of his statements outside of the CBA process and quite possibly into the courts.
Let me just jump in here and say we would be naive if we think that Don Yee, as wild as some of his statements have been, has gone completely off the reservation and doesn't at least have the tacit approval of Tom Brady. This is how agents work. they will frequently say things in much harsher language. They would call an investigation a fraud so that their client, Tom Brady, doesn't have to say it, so that he doesn't look like the bad guy. That's how agents work. And if Tom Brady really had a problem with what Don Yee is saying, maybe Tom Brady wouldn't use the word fraud. Maybe he wouldn't go after the league in quite as harsh a way. But if Tom Brady really had a problem with how Don Yee is presenting his point of view, he would call him back on it and he would say, tone it down a little bit. So we've got to think that as outlandish as we think some of Don Yee's statements have been, they are at least somewhat reflective of what's going on in Tom Brady's head right now.
It's a great point, Judy, and I'm waiting for Tom Brady to make that call because Tom Brady's saying nothing. Basically laughed this off in the presence of fans the other night, the only time we've seen him since this came out. Don Yee is saying fraud and a lot of other very strong terms. Don Yee has other clients. He's going to be in other situations. What happens later on when a team that isn't the Patriots is involved and he's talking about agendas or the league? You can't trust the games on Sunday, the integrity of the game. This is a lot bigger than one client and one team. So I know we talked about his representation of Sean Payton. He was a lot quieter in the aftermath of that investigation. And I know Sean Payton very well. I talked to Sean Payton while he was exiled, and I know exactly what he felt about that situation, but I didn't hear Don Yee talking about everybody else's integrity at the time.
I mean, Silver, the one thing I would jump in there and say is maybe he actually learned a lesson from that. Because remember, I mean, that suspension did wind up getting vacated, and Sean Payton was exonerated in the long run, but he had to serve that suspension. And maybe, and I don't know, I haven't talked to you about this specifically, but it is possible that he learned a lesson from the Payton situation and decided he needed to be more proactive this time around.
I will say this too, Breer. We're talking about Tom Brady here. So if you are the agent of one client and you're going to push the chips into the middle of the table, perhaps it would be that one client.
I'd love to have Don Yee push his chips into the middle of this table. I know he's local. Be great to have Don come here, and I got a lot of questions for him. I'm holding the Wells report right here. There are a lot of things I'd love to ask him because I've heard a lot of, this is a fraud, it's not fair, they had it out for us. And I paraphrase. What I haven't heard is, oh, well, the reason Tom Brady called John Jastremski, the assistant equipment manager, 5 times when this investigation hit after not talking to him for 6 months is because of this. Or all that testimony that they should have put in the report that I'm saying that Ted Wells did not put in intentionally. This is what it is. I have it right here, conveniently. This is what Tom Brady said. Hey, Don, bring it to this table. Let's go.
Mike Silver.
So all of the theater that has occurred with this story, that would be something I would certainly tune into.
Get your popcorn ready.
I'm
Next question.